welcome to another standard deck tech for Streets of New Capenna standard. So for today's list, we have a reference of built around sort of an archetype for this enchantment green enchantment card from the newest set. We call it as the Fight Rigging. So we do this as a 3-2 cast enchantment with Hideaway 5. So what it means by the Hideaway, when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of library, exile one face down, and put the rest in the bottom library in order. So at the beginning of combat of your turn, you may put a counter to creature you control. Then if you control 7 or more power creature, you will play that exiled card from the Hideaway without paying its mana cost. So looking at it, we just need to have a creature on the curb by which when you put out the +1 counter, that becomes a power of 7 or greater, and then you can just trigger the Hideaway. So basically you can just cheat out the high casting cost spells or creatures by putting it under this enchantment and triggering it at the beginning of your combat. So what are the choices for the creatures in this? Since we're using the Sultai colors, or if you're not familiar with that setup, we have black, green, and blue. So we check out our 24 creatures division in this. First, we have a playset of sort of a utility card from Kaldheim, even though it's still around the format. We have Cosmos Serpent, in which they have basically producing three blue serpent creature tokens at the beginning of each upkeep. So it will sort of utilize by its activated ability, wherein whenever you sacrifice a serpent, you can choose one to stop like permanent. Its activated abilities can be activated this turn or have indestructible until end of turn. So basically producing an army of 3/3s is very much a huge advantage just for one card, given that it's still a legendary creature and a 6/6 on its own. And having also these 4 copies, basically you can have a high chance to hide it under the Fight Rigging enchantment and basically triggering it later on for a free spell. So along with it, we also have the new card from SNC. We have Titan of Industry, wherein you have these triggers, destroy enchantment or artifact, target player gains 5 life, create a 4/4 green rhino creature warrior token, and put a shield counter on a creature you control. So having sort of a utility and at the same time 7/7 rich trample creature is basically a good and a quick game ender on its own. So along with it, we also have a few utility lesser casting costs. We have Reservoir Kraken. So its ability of Ward Trample, creating 6/6 on its own, but at the same time you can create 1/1 blue fish whenever the combat triggers, where an opponent may tap an untap creature they control. So it's not really a drawback having to tap it, because on its own it's basically a huge threat. But it depends on how you wipe out an opponent's board. Basically they cannot keep an untapped creature they control to tap this Kraken. So again, another playset is Shakedown Heavy. This is basically a 3-drop 6/4. Its only drawback is that you may have defending player have you draw a card, so it will remove combat and becomes untapped. So basically this is the one that Fight Rigging trigger will have to put a +1 counter on, so it becomes 7/5, and then it will trigger the Hideaway and basically having it casted for free. So 4 copies. So along with it, we also have some 1-ofs and 2-ofs with the form of Toxil, the Corrosive, wherein we can just hard cast this later on if there's a need. But hiding also in Fight Rigging also an option. Can basically put out the +1 counter on creatures your opponent's control by putting up a slime counter on each of them. So whenever a creature you don't control dies with a slime counter on it, you can create a 1/1 black slug creature token on its own. And at the same time, become of having a slug, you can basically sacrifice them by drawing a card. So a 7/7 threat, wiping out the slow wipe of basically one ones and two ones of our opponents. And also we have Worship for Chief as a sort of life gain and a threat of 5/3 on its own by having also a 4/4 when it dies. So by which said, we have a creature also that can be used to ramp out our mana. We have a Tangled Flora Hedron, which is a 2 to cast 1/1 with add for 1 green, but it's also a utility wherein if you lack a playland, you can also play it for free on a tap if needed, as the same time that if we're facing opponents that are the chance of killing off this 1/1 easily, so we can just play it as a land to make sure that you won't miss out your land drops in the early turns. So along with it, we also have 3 copies of we have Prosperous Innkeeper. So this is the card. You can produce a treasure token to fix out your mana and wrap it, and at the same time it triggers life gain, so we can basically able to sustain the early damage threat from aggro decks by gaining life whenever another creature enters the battlefield for under your control. So partnered with Fight Digging is we have other enchantments, a sort of a removal on its own with Blinding of the Old Gods. It is a generic destroy target non-permanent, and at the same time you can ramp up by searching up a forest card, put it in the battlefield, and getting your creatures death touch. And also the powerhouse utility in the form of Mythok Massacre, basically having to ramp early or in the late game. You can basically wipe out opponent's aggro or aggressive start, and at the same time triggers you life gain and lose life depending on the setup, and at the same time help you to regain the damage loss if ever creature and opponent control dies. So along with it, we have spot removals. We have Inferno Grass, March of Wretched Sorrow, and I'd also added a lone copy of Soul Transfer. It's a sorcery, but at the same time it is a utility card on its own by having to return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard or hand if needed. So the overall lineup of this is basically for the creatures, enchantments, and fight rigging in the last are just basically spot removals to fear off opponent's threats, and while you are still developing your board into your big creature spells if needed. So the land base is basically composed of pathways, also from mana fixing slow lands in the form of Deathcut Glade and Dreamroot Cascade for Crimson Bowlands, along with some lone copy of a Manland for Hybrid Eye Tyrant, as well as copy of Seator's Programming Ground, which can be cyclable if needed, and a Bosiju for utility enchantment or artifact removal. So overall, the mana cost is averaging 3.89. It's basically big for its own, but given that you have Prosperous Innkeepers and Tangled Flora Hedron to ramp up, so basically can cope up with what your big spells can go with 3 mana and 4 mana cost in the late game, the middle game. So these are the rest of the stats, and also the tokens that you can use for this deck. Basically, we have a lot. If you are going to provide a good thing that in MTGO or in Magic Arena, there are token generators that are given for free, which you can just use for having to represent these cards and other triggers if needed. So overall, that's basically our deck tech for this Sultai Fight 3 gig deck. If you have any comments or suggestions for the build, you can just put out in this comment the comment box. And if you like this video, you can just like and subscribe, and for more content you can just check out on this channel. And until the next deck tech, and how do hope you have a great weekend and playing Magic the Gathering in your local games, maybe on MTGO or Magic Arena. So until the next video, and thank you for watching.